This one was making the rounds yesterday. Local NBC trying to show you what the firing of an AR looks like and how much damage it can do.
Take a look at this video used to shoot a watermelon using an AR-15.
Yeah, there's only one problem with that particular video. That is definitely not an AR-15 right there. That is a shotgun. That is a pump-action shotgun. It's not even a semi-automatic shotgun. It's a pump-action shotgun, meaning that you have to manually chamber the round. So, well done, media. Yes, I'm definitely going to trust you on what types of guns ought to be banned when you literally cannot tell the difference between a semi-automatic and an automatic and a manual revolver, for example, when you can't tell, you can't explain to me why it is that velocity of a handgun matters as opposed to velocity of a rifle. All of this is just ridiculous. And then, of course, you have the people grandstanding off the back of this who, again, know nothing about guns. Whoopi Goldberg yesterday on The View suggesting that the GOP is silent about guns because the GOP is corrupt. But does Whoopi Goldberg know the first thing about guns or how any of these gun laws would affect anybody? Does she know how many AR-15s are in circulation? The answer is at least 8 million in the United States. Does she know how many rifles are in circulation in the United States? Tens of millions. Does she know the answer to how many guns are in circulation in the United States, or where the crime rates are highest, or which states have the highest rates of gun violence, or how many of the killings with guns are actually suicides? The answer is 2/3. Right? Does Whoopi Goldberg know any of that? No. She just knows that guns are bad, and so she's going to rip on the GOP for being silent about guns. She makes, I think, the dumbest point of the day yesterday on The View, the repository of many dumb points. Here she is.
You know, when the athletes were kneeling, every Republican sort of had something to say. And it's not a criticism. It's just, I'm just wondering, and many have been wondering, where they've been, where they stand on this particular issue.
Okay, and the answer is that all of the Republicans sounded off on players kneeling because they thought players kneeling was wrong. They haven't sounded off about law-abiding citizens owning guns because they don't think law-abiding citizens owning guns is wrong or bad. This is not difficult. There's an actual political reason, an actual values reason, why so many conservatives are not speaking up about why guns should be confiscated, because we don't think guns should be confiscated or the sale of them should be banned. And again, it's amazing to me. I've proposed on this program at least 3 different measures that we could all take as a society in order to push forward against the scourge of mass shootings. And none of these have been seriously discussed by the media. They would prefer to just shout guns, 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 ban, 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 confiscate, confiscate, confiscate. But none of them actually want to talk about serious, hard proposals. The Democrats apparently have now made a move in the House. They've introduced a piece of legislation to ban all semi-automatic rifles. Of course, this is going nowhere, and they know it. The reason they're proposing it is because they want kudos from a bunch of the people in the media. They want a campaign on it. As I've said before, the Democrats had control of Congress. They had full control of the Senate, meaning 60 votes in the Senate. They had control of the House. They had control of the presidency from 2009 to 2011. Did they pass one single gun regulation? The answer, of course, is no. They waited until Republicans took office, and now they get to grandstand. They get to stand there and claim that it's Republicans who are standing between Americans and safety. If those dastardly Republicans would just get out of the way, then we'd be able to pass some really good regulations. They have no intention of pushing anything remotely resembling a good regulation. They just want to posture about all of this. And fortunately, they have the media to do it for them. They have the media to stand there and do it for them. Now, there are some folks who are actually mentioning some solutions. You know, those folks actually include the President of the United States. So the President of the United States has actually put forward a couple of different proposals. I think some of those proposals are smart. I think some of those proposals are not so smart. One of the proposals that he put out yesterday was actually, you know, in our good Trump, bad Trump matrix, this goes in good Trump. Trump talked about mental institutions and the reality that we need to make it more difficult for people who are a danger to themselves and others, not only to get guns, but also we need to make it easier for them to get treatment. Here's Trump talking about the history of mental institutions in the country. He got a lot of flack for this yesterday, but he's absolutely correct. This is clip number 5.
You know, in the old days, we had mental institutions. You had a lot of them. And you could nab somebody like this because, you know, they did. They knew something was off. You had to know that. People were calling all over the place. You can't arrest him, I guess, because he hasn't done anything, but you know he's like a boiler ready to explode, right? So you have to do something. But you can't put him in jail, I guess, because he hasn't done anything. But in the old days, you'd put him into a mental institution.
Okay, this is 100% true. It sounds harsh, what Trump is saying. What he is saying here is 100% true. E. Fuller Torrey is a famous psychologist. I've recommended his books on the program before. He's founder of the Treatment Advocacy Center, and his latest book is American Psychosis: How the Federal Government Destroyed the Mental Illness Treatment System. Well, back in 2013, he talked about what it was that the government had done to destroy the mental health facilities in the country. He talked about how in 1963, John F. Kennedy addressed Congress on mental illness and mental retardation. That was the name of his speech, and proposed a new program under which the federal government would fund community mental health centers, or CMHCs, to take the place of state mental hospitals. The reason was because he had a younger sister who had a mental disability and she'd been put in a state mental hospital, and it freaked him out. And so he said the federal government should take over, and instead they should fund community mental health centers. Well, over the next 17 years, the feds funded nearly 800 of these, with a total of what would be about $20 billion in today's dollars. And during those same years, the number of patients in state mental hospitals dropped from 500,000 people to 132,000 people, and the beds were closed down. Well, it turns out the community mental health centers, right, these local centers funded by the feds, were not interested, actually, in taking care of patients who were being discharged from the state hospitals, meaning the people who were the most unsafe. Instead, they were focusing on people with less severe problems, people who were then termed the worried well. So, you know, the normal person who's taking an antidepressant now, this is what these centers focused on. So state mental institutions, which were very bad places, were replaced by something even worse, which was nothing. And so a lot of these people ended up on the streets. There was no way to forcibly, involuntarily commit somebody. It became very difficult to actually get somebody who's dangerous to themselves into a treatment facility. Right now, you have to provide serious evidence that somebody is a threat to themselves or others, which means an actual suicide attempt. It means an actual suicide attempt in most states, right? You just acting like this shooter acted may not be enough in some of these states. So, as E. Fuller Torrey writes, he says, meantime, during the years the CMHCs were funded, Medicaid and Medicare were created, modifications were made to the supplemental security income and Social Security disability insurance programs. None of these programs was originally intended to become a major federal support for the mentally ill, but all now fill that role. The federal takeover of the mental illness treatment system was complete. And he concludes, approximately half of the mentally ill individuals discharged from state mental hospitals, many of whom had family support, sought outpatient treatment and have done well. The other half, many of whom lack family support and suffer from the most severe illnesses such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, have done poorly. According to multiple studies, untreated mentally ill are responsible for 10% of all homicides, and a higher percentage of mass killings, constitute 20% of jail and prison inmates, and are at least 30% of the homeless. Severely mentally ill individuals now inundate hospital emergency rooms. They've colonized libraries, parks, train stations, and other public spaces. This is not their fault. Okay, and we have spent a ton of money on it. The total cost on mental illness through all these supplemental programs is $46 billion. The total cost for mentally ill individuals through Medicaid and Medicare is $60 billion. That $46 billion is just SSI or SSDI. It's a huge increase in what we are spending, and we are not getting what we paid for. And part of that is because of the social liberals who decided that it was important to release people onto the streets as an element of freedom. They all read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and decided that the entire institutional system was Nurse Ratched. That wasn't true. It was never true. Okay, so in a second, I'm going to show you some stuff that Trump said that was not as great. But for that, you're going to have to go over to Facebook. So you're going to have to leave Facebook and go and subscribe. For $9.99 a month, you get the rest of the show live. You also get to be part of our mailbag, which we'll be doing on Friday. You get to be part of the conversation, where I'll be taking questions live from you, the audience, the people who subscribe.